Okay, so now it is my joy and pleasure to introduce our beloved Reverend Joel Fotinos, who is our speaker of the day.
Hello, everybody. I do get into this season. So before I give our talk, have you guys heard about that app on the phone that you can upload pictures of yourself and artificial intelligence will take that photo and create photos that are better versions of yourself? It's like all the rage right now on Instagram and TikTok. So I uploaded some pictures and look at this. This cracks me up. So like this one's, you know, fairly close, but then like this is the only way I will ever have a six-pack. And then I look like I should be on the Starship Enterprise, right? There's all sorts of ones. There's some that I like this one. That's nice. But then this is my favorite, and this is the one that I think I'm going to start using now for all of my, everything. And I think we should put it as my photo, Neil, on the minister page on our website. This is me. I call this my Lord of the Rings photo. So there you have it. If you haven't,
isn't that Sean Connery?
Well, I get confused for him all the time. The other thing I want to say at the beginning is I am going to do this Write for Life class early next year. I just need to send the information in, but it's going to be online only. It's not going to be in person. So if you finally want to write that thing that is yours to write, please consider taking this class. It's going to be really great. All right, let me turn to the topic at hand. The holidays. Here we are for the holidays. And, I don't know about you, but I love holiday films. What is your favorite holiday film? You can actually type it in the chat. I'm going to tell you, every year we watch Alan's favorite holiday film, which is Christmas in Connecticut with Barbara Stanwyck. Loves that. Of course, Love Actually. There's a movie, It's a Wonderful Life is great. There's a movie called The Holiday with Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet and Jude Law and some other people that's really fantastic. Christmas Story, right? There's a new Christmas Story, right? The sequel. And Elf. Oh, somebody just wrote Elf. Yep. White Christmas. There's also another movie that is not Christmas holiday per se, but it's a fantastic movie and it works really well, called Last Holiday. And it's got Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, and Gerard Depardieu. If you've not seen that, it's called Last Holiday. I'll type that in. I promise you that it is an hour and a half well spent, and it's very science-mindy, and it's so great, and she's so wonderful. And anyway, it's this time of year. Those movies for me just bring so. Terry Hall loves that movie. Brings so much joy. And have you noticed just how contagious joy is? It is. I mean, really, any emotion is contagious, whether it's a high emotion like joy or a low emotion. But, it's so great. I love being in this space. I was out the other morning, I was taking Rafi to work, and he has to be at his job at 7 a.m. And I was driving him there, and I just had one little thought. And the thought, as I was driving him, and he's sitting next to me, we're just chatting. My thought was, I love this moment. We weren't really doing anything special. I just loved being there with him in that moment. And then when I dropped him off, I turned the car around, and right in front of me was the moon, that beautiful moon. Exactly, Ty, that beautiful moon. And it was almost full, and it was like a nightlight. or a big spotlight almost, you know. And then from that, I noticed that the sunrise was happening, and it was just like these exquisite colors. It was purples and pinks. And in the midst of those, there was like this line of orange and yellow. It was just phenomenal. And then I saw the trees, you know, like the trees almost felt like they were breathing. And I just had that moment driving back of just how amazing life is. And I was so high on life that moment. And it all started with that one thought. That's how contagious things are. That one thought of just how much I love this moment. Now, this is a time, you know, we're in the holidays, and the holidays can be hard. Let's just acknowledge that. Loss of loved ones can be especially difficult. Depression, loneliness, things like alienation are, you know, heightened over this time. Studies show that. Differences with family. I don't know about you, if I'm sure you will get along with every member of your family and friends, but you know, I have a few differences with my family. Those differences can be heightened as well, and we can spiral into those feelings. And yet, love is contagious. Joy is contagious. Beauty is contagious. It only takes one of us to make the smallest connection with someone else that might set off a chain in that person's life that changes that person's day, but it might change everything. I can't remember who said it first, but there's that saying out there that probably was Maya Angelou or somebody like that that said, we don't always remember what people say, but we do remember how people make us feel. And we can tap into that. We can reach out to others with kindness, and that kindness can literally change lives. And I just also want to say, you know, if you're a person, people hide their emotions really well sometimes. So if you're a person that's feeling any of those feelings, depression, loneliness, or anything like that, please, please, please reach out to someone. And if you don't know who to reach out to, we have practitioners, and they are amazing. I mean, truthfully, I think you could reach out to anybody in this center. This is the most loving, amazing center, really. But you know, the practitioners, and there are practitioners here in this room, but here's a link to our leadership, which includes the ministers and the practitioners. And please, please don't let this be a holiday where, gosh, you know, connect, please connect. So here's that link, and take this step and please connect, okay? For me, that is something that this season really magnifies. Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating this holiday season, you know, holidays can help build connections to each other and to the divine. And I love the pageantry of the holidays. I mean, I love having fun. We're like kids sometimes. I love to decorate for the holidays. I love to surround ourselves with what's meaningful, beautiful decorations. I have candles lit like everywhere in this house. It's probably smells so intense for people just walking in, but it's so beautiful. I love music. I have my own list, by the way, on Amazon Music of the greatest holiday tunes and singers of all time. And I listen to it. We've been listening to it for 23 years, the years that we've been together, Alan and I. So I love the way also that this is a time, I know that holidays aren't about gifts, but I love giving. And I love that we take this time to give to others. I love it. It's so great that we honor those that we love and that we also help those in need. It's so beautiful. So for those of us in the Science of Mind, we can take our family traditions and everything else that is meaningful to us and put them together into one divine experience this season. This whole season takes on the meanings that we choose, and they are not defined by what others tell us that they should be. Now, what I mean by that is, do you have anyone in your family, or do you know people who tell you how you are supposed to believe for the holidays based on the book that they believe in, and that it has to be that way. Here's an example of that. So a couple of years ago, I was at a holiday gathering, and you just kind of move through. I'm an introvert, so it's hard for me anyway. But I ended up talking to this one person, and of course, this person was an evangelical Christian. And as we were talking, which is fine, by the way, no shade. But as we were talking, I think she could see very clearly that I wasn't coming from the same viewpoint that she had. And so this conversation that we were having suddenly became her chance for a conversion. Like she saw her target and she was going for it. And so she was telling me this and that, and I was just kind of nodding because I was being polite. And then finally she was like, you do know, she just got that intense look in her eyes, and she looked at me and she goes, you do know what the reason for this season is, don't you? Okay, so that's the moment that we in our philosophy have to make the choice. I could go this route and just kind of say, yeah, great, great, and just kind of keep the peace and keep on moving, people, that kind of thing. Or I can go this way and get into a conversation, debate. So I kind of took a middle path, and what I said instead was, well, why don't you tell me what you think the reason for the season is? And so she started telling me the reason for the season and this and that and all of this kind of stuff. And I was saying, oh, that's nice. And she said, well, the reason for the season, of course, is Jesus. He is the reason we are all here. Jesus is the reason for the season. So I just kind of paused and took a breath, and I said, thanks, that's really helpful. And she said, well, don't you agree with that? And I said, I find, Carrie says, you were talking to my mother. I said, I find many of Jesus's teachings. I'm very inspired by the birth story, that birth of the Christ consciousness. I shouldn't have used the phrase. That was the tell, right? Christ consciousness. But I'm like, I'm very inspired by that. That's really beautiful. I really like that a lot. She goes, wait, you don't believe that Jesus, blah, 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 birds, and I said, well, I didn't say I didn't believe in Jesus. And she said, well, what do you believe about Jesus? Okay. So I said, here's what I believe about Jesus. I'm going to sum it up in one sentence, and then let's just move on. She said, okay. And I said, our founder of the philosophy that I belong to, which is the science of mind, not Scientology, our founder, Ernest Holmes. Do you guys say the same thing, by the way? I belong to religious science, comma, not Scientology. Anyway, I said, our founder, Ernest Holmes, said this about Jesus. He said this: Jesus was the great example, not the great exception. And she just kind of went, huh. And that stopped her cold dead in her tracks. And that kind of ended the conversation. And it was great. And then we moved on, and I moved on to the next person and all of that. But I thought, this is, it's important for us in this philosophy to know what we do believe. So you might be wondering, if we don't believe that during this holiday season, what do we believe in this holiday season? And how can we encapsulate what we believe when we get in a situation over holiday dinner with somebody who's pressing you about their beliefs and what do we believe? So let's talk about that. The science of mind has many, many, many wonderful teachers and teachings. and many of which are influenced by Jesus. I mean, Ernest Holmes, when you read any of Ernest Holmes' books, including the Science of Mind textbook, there's a lot about Jesus in there. It's just not only about Jesus. Great example. And there's also teachings about Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism and Islam and psychology and philosophy and Emerson and Thoreau and the Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. And it's a holiday basket cornucopia of the best of the best of the best. We believe there's one mountain and many paths to the top of that mountain. Last week, Reverend Tony talked about wisdom traditions and what we have in common with them. And today I'm going to talk about Science of Mind principles specifically, which are based on the great truths of the world and how we can think of them during this holiday season. Okay, and this is what I'm going to use. This is a new edition of the 1926 edition of the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, which I published. And it's a special edition, not only because it has an amazing foreword by somebody you may have heard of. Oh, it's blurry. That's my name. I wrote that. But also because I added a special bonus book at the end. You can even see right here, it says includes bonus material. And here's what that bonus material is. I added at the end an amazing booklet that Ernest Holmes wrote in 1944. Almost no one talks about it. Almost no one knows about it. I never see it referred to unless I'm the one referring to it, because I love it and I refer to it a lot, which is a shame because it's an excellent encapsulation of the Science of Mind principles and why I added it as a bonus book to this edition. By the way, I'll put the link later, so you don't have to. Yeah, I'll put the link in later. This is a little bonus edition I added to this from a little booklet he wrote in 1944 again called What Religious Science Teaches. And it's only about 50 pages. So of this big book, it's only like this versus like 500 pages or whatever this is. It takes all of this and brings it down into this. It's fantastic. It's amazing. So one of the things it does is it contains something that we call in our movement the Declaration of Principles. We've talked about that a little bit in the past, here and there. The Declaration of Principles are 11 statements that Ernest Holmes made. Originally, it was in 1927, I think, and it was published in the Science of Mind magazine. And since then, it's become like the Declaration of Principles for our philosophy. And we still use those declarations of principles today. I'm not going to go through them because this will be a 3-hour talk. And so I'm not going to do that. But here's what I am going to do. I'm going to send you the link in the chat because it is he encapsulates it all here, all 11 statements, but it's also on our website too. So the CSL website and our website both. And in here, it is as he originally wrote them, but on those websites, it's as they've been updated for more inclusive language. Because when Ernest Holmes wrote this book, of course, back in this book, 1944, and this book, 1926, we use the words like man to mean humankind or mankind for humankind, etc. So it has been updated and you can go and find them there. But so he does have these 11 statements that are really fantastic and they give a great basis if you want to summarize things. But then he does something interesting in this little book at the end called What Religious Science Teaches, is he takes each of those principles and shows how they are also found in the world's wisdom traditions. So let me just give you one example. Okay, so this is a little booklet at the back called What Religious Science Teaches. And the first declaration is, we believe in God, the living Almighty One. And it goes on from there, but then he stops. So Then he takes um, that first line, we believe in God, the Almighty, the living Spirit Almighty. And he shows how that is in the Christian Bible. I am the Lord, I change not. One God of all, who is above all and through all and in all. Know that the Lord is God. There is nothing else beside God. I am the Alpha and the Omega. And then he shows how that same concept is in the text of Taoism. The Tao is unchanging and has no name. There is no end or beginning to the Tao, etc., etc., etc. Then the Egyptian Hermetic teachings, and he quotes them. Then Hinduism, and he quotes Hinduism. And here is the Quran. He quotes the Quran. Here is Buddhism, and he quotes Buddhism. Here's the Apocrypha. Here's the Talmud. And he goes through and he shows how our beliefs are universal beliefs. I mean, this booklet is only about 50 pages, so it's not like the most comprehensive. It's an encapsulation. It doesn't include every single world religion out there, but it's fascinating to read through it and see how what we believe is really taken from the best of what the world believes, the world wisdom traditions. We can see that each one of these world traditions is a stream or a river, and we're all going to that same ocean. Science of mind is one of those. And we are ever expanding in our beliefs and in our actions and in our practices. It's so great. That's in this little book. But this little book does something else. Ernest Holmes does another summary of this science of mind philosophy. He calls it the purpose and teachings of religious science. Now, we don't really use religious science a lot anymore. We usually say science of mind, and we're known as the Centers for Spiritual Living. Back when he first incorporated the organization, it was called the Institute of Religious Science. So religious science is what he's using in this, but we can also say science of mind or just our beliefs. And we don't use religious science a lot. I do think in part because it sounds like Scientology, and we don't want to be confused with that. But the purpose and teachings of religious science, I love these, and they seem really, I think, to fit the holiday season. For that lady at that holiday gathering, you know, the one that was trying to convert me, Jesus was the reason for her season. But for me, these principles sum up this special time of year. Now, tell me, I'm not going to read all of them. There's 12 of them. I'm going to just touch on a few of them. But tell me if these don't sum up the best of the season for us, so that this season becomes about us. It becomes about you. It becomes about me, instead of somebody who lived 2,000 years ago and is out there. It's about in here. And it's about a way that we can live, and we can walk through the world in a way that just is so divine. They're not dogmatic. Ernest Holmes says that these aren't principles we created. They are principles we discovered. And therefore, we can connect to these and use them to create our own best life experience. So the first one is, he says, the universe is fundamentally good. Let me just reread that for a second. I mean, that's kind of old hat for a lot of us in this crowd, but let me just reread that for 1 second. The universe is fundamentally good. Isn't that refreshing? It's actually radical. If you don't think so, go to any of the churches that line the streets that we live in, and they will most of them will teach something called original sin. That we are tainted by sin just by existing, because there was a man and a woman who ate an apple, and by eating an apple, they gained knowledge from the tree of wisdom. Does that even make sense? I always, even when I was an evangelical Christian myself, I always wondered about that, which is if God was all knowing of the past, present, and future, and God gave us free will, and God says, here, let me put you two in the most beautiful like nature area there is, and you can have the fruits of anything except for that one tree. Now, I don't know if any of you are parents, but if you tell a kid you can have anything but that one thing, what is the kid going to go for? And if you're an all-knowing God, you would know that that's exactly where you're going to head for first. And by the way, if you created us in your image and there was a tree of knowledge, wouldn't you want your creations to eat from that tree? Never made sense to me. Anyway, I digress. That's another talk for another day. In fact, I want to give that talk, but it doesn't make sense. This concept is not taught by Jesus, by the way. It was taught of original sin. Jesus didn't talk about original sin. St. Augustine did in the 4th and 5th centuries. And the church has adopted that. Science of mind turns that around and says that, no way, Jose, you were not born. In fact, that's in the Bible. No way, Jose is in the book of Reverend Joel, book 7, verse 14. It says that you are born in goodness. Why? Because God made you, and God is good. Why would God not create goodness? Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. I'm going to have to maybe cut a few of these out. So that's what we believe. We believe at our core, we are good. Next, he says, we are a manifestation of spirit, and for spirit to desire evil for you or me would mean that it would desire evil for itself. That's the next principle. He's saying, since we are created by goodness, it's inconceivable that there would be a supreme power that would trick us into saying that we have free will, but if we don't use that free will in this one tiny little way on our brief time on earth, that we'll be damned forever. That's not free will. That's coercion. That doesn't make any sense. Science of mind teaches that life itself is good, and we are created by that goodness, so life always wants goodness for us. It's like the transitive property of geometry, which I know you all know off the top of your head. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. If life is good and we are life, then we are good. Period. Next, I'm going to speed up a little bit. Next, he says, all apparent evil is the result of ignorance and will disappear to the degree that it is no longer thought about, believed in, or indulged in. Brilliant. Evil, he says, is not a thing of itself. It has no outside entity, like a devil. It is only the result of our misuse of the laws of life. We could have a big discussion about that, but let me just keep it in the holiday spirit. Do you remember the story of the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens? You know, the one with the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, with Ebenezer Scrooge, bah humbug. If you go back and read that from the science of mind point of view, you will see it's a science of mind story. Because remember, we draw from the best of the best, including literature. Okay, and what you will see is that Ebenezer Scrooge is a perfect example who used the laws of life negatively. Then, when he had an epiphany, a direct experience of the divine through his dreams, he then used the same laws of life positively. It's really amazing. By the way, I'm going to put in the chat, there's a version of that story, and somebody else referenced an early version. There's a later version from 1979 that was a made-for-TV movie starring, of all people, Henry Winkler, who's an amazing actor. And they called it an American Christmas Carol. And it's for free on YouTube. And do yourself a favor and watch that. Watch Last Holiday with Queen Latifah on one night, and watch Henry Winkler's An American Christmas Carol on Another Night. You'll be really glad that you did. And there you have it. Okay, next. God, he says, God is love, and love can have no desire other than to bless all alike and to express itself through all. This is, to me, love is the reason for the season, and our desire to give to others is built inside of us. It's universal. It's who we are in our very DNA, because life gave to us first, and we can then give to others. Just a couple more. I'm going to cut out this. He says, religious science teaches that human personality should be and may become the highest manifestation of good. What this means to me, in other words, is that who you are is who you were born to be, and that life needs you and wants you to be as you are. The fullness and allness of who each of us is not only wonderful to the whole of life, it is necessary. Life is incomplete without you. This tells us to be more of who we are rather than less. We don't have to change who we are to fit into something out there. We are born to become the fullness and allness that we already are. So who you are, don't let anybody this season tell you that you aren't beautiful for whoever you are. Listen to me, and many of us affirm that for you. Okay, two more. Religious science teaches that the kingdom of God is at hand. I love this. What this means is it speaks of the idea of the present moment. There are other people who believe in a coming, tomorrow or 1,000 years from now. And what religious science teaches, Ernest Holmes teaches, is no, it's not about then, it's about now, the present moment. Everything you need, he says, to have a deeper connection is here, right now, where you are here. Spiritual practices like meditation or nature walks, by the way, are excellent ways to relate to this principle more fully. And then the last one I'll highlight, there are 12 total, but the last one I'll highlight here is he says this is my favorite of the 12. He says, now he's going to use the word that religious science is a religion. Later on in his teachings, by the way, he kind of pulled back from that and he said that we're a philosophy. Doesn't matter. You can use the word religion. You can use the word philosophy. You can say tomato. I can say tomato. And we both can coexist at the same dinner. All right. But he's going to use the word religion. Fill in what you want. He says it this way. Religious science is a religion or philosophy free from fear and uncertainty. It is a religion of faith justified by results. And then he ends it with this. Religious science is a religion of joy. Boom, mic drop. That is the greatest thing. This is the philosophy that we study. It's a philosophy that doesn't just philosophize. It's a philosophy that is both well-scoped and incredibly practical in the moment. It's love and it's law. It has teachings, but it's not punitive. It's not dogmatic. It brings the best of all the religions and wisdom teachings together in one, because we believe that every river leads to the same big, beautiful ocean. Best of all, when we study it, when we learn it, and when we practice it, we can use it to not only help ourselves, but we can use it to meet others where they are, who have different belief systems, because we are the synthesis of the best of all, including what they believe. We believe all of that. Let me just say this, I'm coming to my close. This is what Ernest Holmes writes in the little booklet at the back of this book called What Religious Science Teachings, okay? He says this, the time has come when religion must be made practical, and when faith in the invisible must be consciously developed free from dogma, superstition, or fear. Religious science today offers the world what the ages have been waiting for. It is the culmination of the hope, the aspiration, and the faith of the enlightened of all time. The truth, capital T truth, it teaches is old. It has run through spiritual philosophies of the ages, but this teaching has always been more or less handicapped by the dogmas and superstitions imposed upon it by the theology of the times. But our present time demands that the fear and superstition surrounding religious conviction be removed, and that the truth, capital T truth, plain, simple, and direct, be presented when we, you and I, may learn to live now in the present with the assurance of the eternal one. We are joyfully one with the one and the one who created us. We then shall go forth with joy to meet this new day, endeavoring to embody the Spirit of Christ, that the divine in us shall rise triumphant to live forever in the presence of God. Let me close with this. I'm going to treat us in, but I'm going to treat us in a little bit differently. I'm going to treat us in by starting with the words of a Christmas song. I checked with Ty ahead of time to see if he was going to sing this, because I didn't want to give away, if he was going to sing it, I was going to just let him sing it, but he's not. He's singing another incredible, great tune in the only way that beautiful Ty can sing, which is incredible. This is another Christmas song many of you know, and I'm going to let it lead us into the treatment. And it's a song that really begins by remembering that those of us who grew up in the Christian tradition or with no tradition often encountered another character of this time, Santa Claus, and how we would go sit on Santa's lap at the mall or at a store or something like that. And then it talks about how we turn that into our adult Christmas list. We used to give our kids' Christmas list, but what is our adult Christmas list? And by the way, just before I do that, it just made me remember my son at that time. So like, here he is as a baby. We used to have to prop him up. I was trying to get a great picture, and so we would prop him up, put presents behind him, and we'd prop him up, and then he'd just fall over because he was like a little baby and he couldn't hold himself up. And I'd prop him up again. Anyway, and then here he is. Oh, look how cute. But when he was little, here's one of the many times he loved Santa Claus a lot. Santa and he were besties, and he loved Santa. And this Santa at this mall, which was Livingston Mall, who waited in line forever, and this Santa said to him, "Are you a good little boy or a bad little boy?" Now, my son and our children have been raised in science of mind. So he knew the answer to that question. And he looked at Santa and he goes, "I'm a good boy." And then Santa said, "Well, but were you naughty this year or were you nice?" And he looked at Santa and he goes, "I was nice. I'm a good boy." And I thought, that's my kid. That's my kid. So I love that. Anyway, so this song encapsulates that. And I'm going to read through it. And when we get to the chorus, let's make that our declaration, our positive prayer affirmations, because I think we can all agree with the chorus of this song. And then I'll just close it out with a quick treatment, okay? So take a breath. And this is a song called My Grown-Up Christmas List. And it's been done by everybody. I mean, literally everybody. And there are many good versions out there. Amy Grant has a good version, Kelly Clarkson, Michael Bublé, etc. Many people have done this. My favorite, though, is Miss Natalie Cole. So if you don't recognize a song and you want to check it out, go to YouTube and put in Natalie Cole, My Grown-Up Christmas List, all right? And these are the words. She sings, or we say, "Do you remember me? I sat upon your knee, and I wrote to you with childhood fantasies." Well, and by the way, I might cry through this. Well, I'm all grown up now. Can you still help somehow? I'm not a child, but my heart can still dream. So, Santa, here's my lifelong wish, my grown up Christmas list. Not for myself, but for our world in need. And this is the chorus. So let's declare this as true. No more lives torn apart. Wars would never start, and time will heal all hearts. Everyone would have a friend, and right will always win, and love will never end. This is my grown-up Christmas list. This is my only lifelong wish, my grown-up Christmas list. So let's just take this into treatment now. Know that the beautiful, playful part of this season is so great. You can play with it and have fun with it. But that other part is there too, the connection, the bright light, the belief. Maybe it's a childlike belief in the best sense, the belief in the hope of the goodness of all humankind. So right now, as we connect to what we believe to be that one power, whatever you call it, I like universal energy. People can call it anything you want. But we connect to that thing, that energy, that creative power that has created all life. That both religion and science can both study and be in awe of. And we are there in that place, that awesome place, where we are inspired by the eternal, the infinite, the everything. And we know because our Science of Mind teachings tells us we are each one with that one. We are each one with that. And that as we grow, we can go from the place where it's about me receiving things to taking that same power and using it to give it out into the world. My grown-up Christmas list, my grown-up holiday list, my grown-up spiritual list. That we take this love that we feel and connect with, and we now see it and spread it to our household, to those we love, to our town, our county, our state, our country, our planet, and beyond. That our each little light that we shine right now collectively becomes a bright light for our own lives, for the lives of those who need it, and also for the world at large. Oh, when I think of the reason for the season, this is it. This is it. And I can feel it. And I love it. And I'm so grateful for it. And I release it into love and law, knowing it for each person listening to these words, and for myself. And now the law lovingly takes it, and we say it is so together. We believe it, we affirm it, we now let it be. And together we say, and so it is.